Hello there and welcome back. Tonight, we set out on a journey unlike any we've taken before, one that carries you far beyond the boundaries of modern memory. As the stars shimmer gently outside your window, imagine peeling back the pages of time. Not just hundreds or thousands of years, but hundreds of millions. Tonight, you'll leave behind the familiar rhythms of today's world and step into a realm older than any human footstep. A world ruled not by people, but by giants. This place is filled with mystery and wonder, lush jungles, strange calls in the night, and the thundering footsteps of creatures too immense to imagine. But you are there, somehow, standing on ancient soil, breathing ancient air. What would it feel like to walk through the Jurassic? Let's take our first step together. The moment your foot touches the ground, you know you're not in any time you've ever known. The air is thick and warm, almost sticky against your skin, and it smells of damp moss, sweet rot, and distant smoke. You're standing at the edge of a vast fern-filled forest. Towering tree ferns unfurl like giant green umbrellas above your head, and thick horsetail plants brush your knees with each step. The soil underfoot is soft and springy, not muddy, but deeply alive, as if the earth itself is breathing. The soundscape is immediately unfamiliar. Insects buzz in a dozen pitches, from slow clicks to high whines. Something large, rustles far off in the undergrowth, followed by a low, groaning bellow that rises and falls like a cello being played in the distance. Birds? No, there are no birds here, at least not yet. Instead, strange chirps and screeches fill the air, the calls of early reptiles and primitive flying creatures that skim the treetops like shadows. You turn in a slow circle, taking it all in. The sun filters down through layers of fog and foliage in a golden haze. It's not a sky you recognize. The clouds are thicker, more textured, as if painted with a rougher brush. And the sunlight feels different, warmer, more diffuse, almost like the sun is older, though it isn't. The warmth isn't just from above, either. The very ground radiates heat, and every breeze carries the earthy breath of an ecosystem teeming with life and danger. You step forward carefully, brushing aside thick fronds. Insects scatter. A distant thud vibrates through the soil, like something enormous moving across the forest floor. You freeze, not out of fear, but awe. Whatever made that sound must be massive. This is the Jurassic period, roughly 150 million years before your time. Back then, Earth was a different place altogether. The continents were still shifting slowly away from each other after the breakup of Pangaea. Oceans reached farther inland, sea levels were higher, volcanoes were more active, and the entire planet was bathed in greenhouse warmth. No ice caps, no winter snowfalls in most places, just endless warmth, dense forests, and the rising breath of evolution itself. The land you're standing on may one day become part of North America, or perhaps Europe or Asia, but now it is unrecognizable. There are no mammals beyond tiny shrew-like creatures hidden in the leaf litter. No flowers bloom here. Flowering plants won't appear for millions of years. Instead, the landscape is ruled by cycads, ginkgos, and towering conifers. A leafy, humid paradise teeming with reptiles of every shape and size. A soft squawk draws your eyes skyward. You spot a creature gliding overhead on leathery wings. A pterosaur. It's not a dinosaur technically, but a flying reptile, like a cross between a crane, a bat, and something you can't quite name. It swoops above the canopy with grace, its long beak catching the sunlight like a blade. You wonder if it saw you. Your clothes, your shoes, your backpack, they feel out of place here. The materials are too smooth, too manufactured. The Jurassic world doesn't recognize plastics or nylon or electronics. There's no electricity, No roads, no hum of engines, only the wind in the trees, the distant thunder of movement, and the constant underlying music of insects and unseen creatures. You walk a bit farther, deeper into the forest. Each step is careful, calculated. You instinctively know this isn't a world built for you. Every leaf might hide a bite, every log might conceal something that slithers or strikes. Still, there's beauty here, overwhelming beauty. Vines spiral upward toward the light. Moss glows faintly green on the trunks of trees. Raindrops from last night's storm hang like diamonds along giant fronds. But the deeper truth begins to settle in. You, a modern human, don't belong here. Not really. Your senses aren't trained for this environment. Your instincts are shaped by cities and grocery stores and soft cotton bedding. Here, survival isn't a thought. It's a way of existence etched into every living thing's bones. And yet, you are here. So what now? Let's take a closer look at what this Jurassic Earth truly was. Not just what it looked like, but how it worked, and whether a human being like you could ever hope to survive its trials. Let's begin with the ground beneath your feet, and the world it reveals. As you stand still for a moment longer, feeling the soil shift slightly beneath your boots, you realize that the land itself seems almost alive, not just with the movement of creatures above the surface, but with the slow, hidden forces far below. Deep underground, the planet's molten interior churns and pushes, shaping the very geography you walk across. This is the Jurassic Earth, raw, dynamic, and still in the midst of becoming. You kneel and press your fingers into the ground. The earth is dark and damp, rich with decaying plant matter. The scent rising from it is strong, musty and ancient, a mix of wet bark and minerals. This is no ordinary soil. It's packed with energy, having absorbed generations of falling leaves, broken branches, and microscopic life. It feels like the foundation of a world in full bloom. As you rise again and look out over the terrain, you begin to see patterns. Low, rolling hills stitched together by shallow rivers. Thick forests press against open fern meadows. In the far distance, hazy with heat and mist, a jagged silhouette rises. A volcano. Its peak is crowned by a soft plume of smoke, a quiet reminder that the Earth's crust is thin and restless. Back in your time, you may have seen the continents on a globe. Blue oceans, green landmasses drifting slowly across time. But here in the Jurassic, those familiar outlines do not yet exist. North America is just beginning to pull away from Europe and Africa. South America is still curled against Africa's side like a puzzle piece not yet removed. India is an isolated island far from Asia. Australia is tucked into the southern hemisphere, still kissing Antarctica. You're walking on one of these drifting land masses. Not quite the world you know, but part of its ancestry. Plate tectonics. The slow, grinding movement of giant slabs of rock across the Earth's surface is shaping the world beneath your feet. Every step you take is a step across a landscape that is moving, changing, evolving. The process is so slow you can't feel it. But in geological time, continents are in constant motion. And it's not just the land that's changing, it's the air too. You take a deep breath and feel it fill your lungs with a richness you're not used to. Scientists believe that the atmosphere during the Jurassic was different than today's. Oxygen levels were likely higher. Carbon dioxide, too. The planet was warmer overall. Not by a little, but by several degrees. This heat wasn't distributed evenly. The poles were still cooler, but not covered in ice. Tropical zones stretched far and wide. Rainforests were larger, wetter, and more constant. The climate was what scientists call a greenhouse climate. No glaciers, no polar ice caps, no frozen tundras. The Earth was, quite literally, a hothouse. Warm seas spilled into shallow inland basins, thick, humid air wrapped around every living thing, and storms, wild, electric, towering storms, often raged with a violence unfamiliar to us now. You pause near a ridge, watching a curtain of rain in the distance. It doesn't come in neat lines or predictable bursts. It spills from the sky like a warm waterfall, drenching everything. Lightning crackles through a dense stack of purple clouds, followed a moment later by the booming drumroll of thunder. Weather in the Jurassic wasn't always dangerous, but it was intense. The warmth powered a global water cycle that churned endlessly. Rivers rose and fell, lakes expanded and vanished, and floodplains shifted constantly. If you were trying to survive here, you'd need to stay mobile, alert, and ready to flee rising waters. But the planet's dynamic nature wasn't limited to water and air. You look down again and notice cracks in the earth, thin, reddish lines that hint at the volcanic nature of this land. Lava once flowed here. It may do so again. Earthquakes, though perhaps subtle in this moment, are always a possibility. The land is not at rest. It is restless, sculpting itself day by day. Nearby, a group of tall conifer trees towers above you. Their bark is thick and deeply grooved. These trees are survivors, relatives of today's pines and redwoods. But they're different too. They've adapted to this hot, ancient world. Their cones are larger, their needles longer. Insects crawl busily along their trunks. Strange beetles, silver ants, and soft-bodied creatures that look almost like trilobites, though those are long extinct by this time. As you walk among the trees, you begin to feel the rhythm of this place. It's slow and steady, yet purposeful. Everything has a role. The plants feed the herbivores feed the carnivores, the dead feed the soil feeds the plants, and all of it is woven together by forces deeper than biology, by geology, by heat, by time. You find a rock at the edge of a stream and sit down, letting the cool water run over your hand. It's soft and silty, not yet carved into familiar riverbanks. The pebbles are smooth but not fully rounded, new stones born of recent shifts in the land. You wonder what kind of minerals they hold, what elements they carry that might one day form crystals, or fossils, or even fuels. And then you feel it. A low rumble beneath you, faint but real, an echo from deep inside the earth. Perhaps magma moving, perhaps a tectonic plate shifting slightly. It reminds you that this world, for all its beauty, is wild, unpredictable, and utterly indifferent to your presence. In your time, humans have harnessed the earth in many ways, building cities, cultivating land, even predicting some of its moods. But here, in the Jurassic, you are just another creature on the landscape. You don't shape the land shapes you. You stand and take one more look around. The volcano in the distance exhales a fresh puff of smoke. The wind shifts slightly, and somewhere beyond the trees, a deep groaning call sounds again. Something large moving through the forest. It's time to keep moving. Let's explore what this air, this invisible atmosphere around you, is really made of, and whether it could help or harm you. You take another deep breath, slowly, deeply, letting the humid Jurassic air fill your lungs once more. It smells of moss and wet stone with a hint of something sweet, perhaps the decay of ripe cycads or the flowering cones of a nearby ginkgo. The air is thick here, noticeably heavier than what you're used to. And as you breathe in, you can almost feel your chest working harder to take it in. But there's something else, something different about this ancient atmosphere. The air you're breathing is rich in oxygen, possibly richer than any atmosphere humans have ever known. During the Jurassic period, scientists estimate that the Earth's oxygen content may have hovered around 26% compared to the 21% in today's air. At first, it might seem like a good thing. More oxygen, more energy, more vitality, right? Not exactly. With every breath, your blood floods with oxygen more rapidly than you're used to. You might feel a momentary sense of euphoria, your limbs tingling, your heart beating just a little faster. But your body wasn't designed for this. Your cells aren't adapted to these levels. Too much oxygen, sustained for too long, can actually become toxic. Oxygen poisoning, or hyperoxia, is a real concern. The delicate tissues of your lungs might begin to suffer, and over time, this rich air could lead to inflammation or even damage your nervous system. It's a strange irony. Something so essential, so life-giving, could also threaten you here. Still, in short bursts, you'd likely be fine. Your body might even feel stronger for a while, energized, as if supercharged. Muscles could recover faster. Wounds might heal with surprising speed, and mentally you might feel sharper, more alert than ever before. But it's not just the oxygen. Carbon dioxide levels are much higher, too. Perhaps 5 to 10 times higher than modern levels. That means the air is warmer, denser, and more reactive. Your lungs can handle it, but it feels strange, like breathing in warm vapor rather than air. Your skin grows damp, not from sweat, but from the atmosphere wrapping around you like a living blanket. You walk through a clearing now, where tall ferns sway in a soft breeze. The leaves glisten with condensation, even though it hasn't rained for hours. Everything here breathes moisture. Your clothes stick to your skin. Your hair curls with humidity. And with every breath, you take in a soup of microscopic spores, pollen, and ancient microbial life. This is where the air begins to reveal its hidden stories. In your world, airborne pollutants often come from factories or cars. But here, the pollutants are natural. Spores from fungi the size of dinner plates, or invisible particles released by rotting plant matter. Your immune system, shaped by modern microbes, doesn't recognize these airborne intruders. You sneeze, perhaps, or your eyes water. You wonder if allergies are even possible in this time. Nearby, an insect with shimmering wings zips past your face. You swat gently and watch it vanish into the underbrush. Insects in the Jurassic, you recall, could grow much larger than today's. The reason? This very air. With higher oxygen content, even small organisms could fuel bigger, more active bodies. Dragonflies the size of hawks once soared through ancient skies. Though those lived mostly in earlier periods, like the Carboniferous, echoes of that evolutionary path remain. You glance up and wonder if such creatures still flutter nearby. Suddenly a sound startles you, a rhythmic beat overhead, like wings flapping through soup. You duck beneath a thick palm-like leaf just as a dark shadow passes over you. It's not a bird. You remember birds haven't fully evolved yet. What you saw was likely a pterosaur, leathery wings, elongated head, a beak full of needle teeth. It glides in silence after that, vanishing behind tall cycads, leaving behind only the rush of displaced air. You inhale again, and this time you notice something else. Warmth. The air is not just humid, it's hot. Jurassic air rarely cooled, even at night. Without polar ice caps to reflect sunlight, Earth absorbed more heat, and with more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, the planet retained that warmth like a giant greenhouse. The nights here might be stifling, the days almost unbearable in direct sunlight. You seek shelter beneath a massive fern tree, wiping sweat from your brow. It occurs to you, in this climate, staying hydrated would be a constant struggle. Your body would lose water rapidly. You'd need to find reliable sources to drink, and soon. The thick air also makes movement more taxing. Even simple hikes through the forest might leave you dizzy, overheated, and exhausted. And then another realization comes. Fire. In your world, fire is a constant companion. For light, for warmth, for cooking. But here, fire behaves differently. With oxygen levels so high, even a small spark could ignite rapidly. A lightning strike, a friction-sparked ember, these might birth wildfires that move faster, burn hotter, and destroy more than you could imagine. Whole forests could disappear in hours. The air, once life-giving, could become an agent of destruction. You crouch low and study a fallen tree. Its bark is blackened in places, charred remnants of some past blaze. You place your hand on the surface and feel the flaking carbon rub off on your fingertips. Even here, in this untouched age, fire leaves its mark. But even so, life thrives. Mosses cover the trunks, ferns regrow in wide carpets, new shoots push up through ash. The high oxygen air doesn't just feed fire, it also feeds rebirth. Plants grow faster, insects buzz with endless energy, reptiles breathe deeply and bask in the warmth, their blood quickened by the sun and the atmosphere. You sit quietly for a while, letting your body adjust. Your breath slows, your heart finds a rhythm. You begin to feel how your body might adapt, even if just for a short time, to this strange, rich air. It would take effort, yes. You might need protective gear, oxygen filters, or careful timing. But for now, as you listen to the gentle hum of Jurassic life all around you, you find yourself marveling at the complexity of this world and the very air that fills your lungs. Still, the air is only one part of the challenge. If you truly want to survive here, you'll need to face what lives beside you. Not just the plants or the insects, but the giants. Let's walk a little farther and meet them. You step cautiously into a wide clearing where the dense canopy opens up to reveal a sky streaked with golden sunlight and soft, drifting clouds. The air is still heavy, still warm, but now it carries something else. Vibration. A deep, rhythmic thud, like distant drum beats, echoes through the ground. The leaves tremble slightly. A ripple passes through a shallow pond nearby. And then, emerging from the edge of the forest, you see it. A shadow, then a limb, then a neck, impossibly long, arcing through the air like a slow-moving river. The creature steps into view, and your breath catches. A sauropod. It's larger than any living animal you've ever seen, larger than you thought anything on land could be. Its body is as massive as a city bus, with thick pillar-like legs and a swaying tail that moves like a whip behind it. Its neck reaches so high you have to crane your head all the way back just to glimpse its small head, perched like a bird atop a giraffe's body. It chews lazily on a crown of leafy branches, tearing them from the treetops with a crunch. You don't move, you barely breathe, because for a moment you're not just watching this dinosaur, it's watching you. Its dark, reflective eyes scan the clearing, pausing on your tiny figure among the ferns. It tilts its head slightly, as if trying to understand what it sees. But then, slowly, it lowers its gaze and returns to feeding, its jaw working in calm, mechanical rhythm. You're no threat. Not to a creature like this. This is the realm of the giants. Sauropods like Brachiosaurus, Diplodocus, and Apatosaurus ruled the land during the Jurassic period. They were the largest land animals to ever walk the earth, reaching lengths of up to 80 feet or more. Some weighed over 40 tons, heavier than a dozen elephants. Yet they moved with surprising grace, their massive feet landing in careful succession, their tails swinging behind them like balancing arms. You wonder, how did such giants survive? What powered those immense bodies? The answer is all around you. Plants. Endless plants. The Jurassic world was a feast of green. Lush forests filled with cycads, tree ferns, ginkgos, and conifers. The sauropods were adapted for bulk feeding. They didn't chew much. They swallowed leaves and twigs whole, relying on enormous stomachs and fermentation to break down the tough plant material. They spent most of their time eating. A creature that big needed to eat hundreds of pounds of foliage every day. You take a cautious step forward, and the ground trembles again. More are coming. From the trees to your left, a second sauropod appears. Then a third, then a fourth. A small herd, moving in slow procession through the clearing. Mothers and young, perhaps, though even the juveniles tower above you. Their footsteps form a gentle thunder. Birds would have scattered if there were any. But here only dragonflies and buzzing insects take flight. One of the younger dinosaurs snorts and lowers its head, sniffing the air. Its nostrils are wide and wet. You hold perfectly still. Its gaze meets yours for a fleeting second and then, without interest, it turns away and nudges a sibling with its snout. A low groaning sound rises between them. Not threatening, but conversational. They are magnificent. And you are impossibly small. In your world, the tallest animals are giraffes, the heaviest are elephants, but even the largest bull elephant would be dwarfed by a Brachiosaurus. You're not just outmatched, you're outscaled. Even a playful nudge from one of these animals could crush you. Even an accidental step could end you. Survival in a world of giants requires more than fear. It requires strategy. You look around for shelter. A fallen tree, a ridge, a cave, anything that might protect you if they began to stampede. Herd behavior, you remember, can turn dangerous quickly. These creatures aren't aggressive. They don't eat meat. But fear, panic, or simple confusion could set off a chain reaction. Still, you sense no threat right now. This herd is calm, peaceful. Their tails swing lazily. Their bellies rumble with contentment. You take a few more steps to the side and kneel in the ferns, watching them pass. It's like witnessing a living cathedral in motion, each movement vast and slow, each breath a part of the earth's rhythm. Nearby, a much smaller dinosaur scurries through the undergrowth. It's a dryosaur, a small bipedal herbivore no larger than a dog. Its tail stiffens as it darts between ferns, careful not to stray too close to the sauropod feet. It chirps quietly and nibbles at ground-level leaves, ever alert for predators. Because where there are herbivores, there are always carnivores. The thought sends a ripple of unease through you. If a giant herbivore can squash you by accident, what could a hungry predator do on purpose? Still, for this moment, you are safe. The sun continues its arc across the sky. The air smells of damp soil, crushed leaves, and the musky breath of ancient giants. Somewhere beyond the trees, a deep roar echoes, distant but powerful. You don't recognize the sound, but you know what it means. You are not alone. And while these giants are peaceful, others may not be. As the last of the sauropods disappears into the trees, their tails swaying like pendulums behind them, you rise from your hiding spot. You brush off the ferns and feel the tremors fade from the ground beneath your feet. It's time to move on. You've seen the gentle giants of the Jurassic. Now it's time to meet the other kind. The sharp-toothed, fast-footed creatures who rule this world not with size, but with hunger. Let's walk into the shadow of the hunters. The forest changes as you move deeper. The light grows dimmer, the canopy tighter. The thick ferns and mossy trees that once felt alive with birdsong and gentle giants now seem quieter, more watchful. Each footstep is deliberate. You duck beneath low branches, your breath held in anticipation. Somewhere beyond the dense wall of foliage, a predator waits. You can feel it. Your ears pick up new sounds. A soft rustle, a faint crack of twigs, the whisper of movement through brush. You freeze. Your pulse quickens. And just then, in the clearing up ahead, a shape flashes between the trees. Fast, too fast to be a sauropod. Lower to the ground, leaner, more deliberate. This is not a creature grazing in peace. It's hunting. You press yourself against a tree trunk, barely daring to breathe. Slowly, you peer out past a broad cycad leaf. And there it is, a theropod. Perhaps it's an Allosaurus, one of the dominant predators of the late Jurassic. It stands nearly 3 times your height, its massive tail held stiff for balance, its arms short but strong, its claws curved like sickles. The head is the most terrifying. Broad and angular, with serrated teeth visible even when its jaws are closed. It sniffs the air, tongue flicking, its gaze sweeping the forest like a searchlight. It's beautiful in its own way, not just terrifying, but perfectly adapted. Each movement is measured, each footstep is silent. This is not a beast. It's a strategist, a survivor, an apex predator. You remain still, almost blending into the shadow of the tree. The theropod takes a few more steps, then stops. Its head tilts. You feel your body tense. Does it see you? But then, another sound, a soft grunt from deeper in the brush. The predator turns, distracted, and vanishes into the undergrowth with shocking speed. You exhale, A slow, trembling breath. That was close, and it was only one. Because the Jurassic period was not ruled by a single predator, but by many, each specialized, each deadly in its own way. You might encounter Ceratosaurus, slightly smaller than Allosaurus, but built for ambush and equipped with a powerful horned snout, or Torvosaurus, a massive, heavily muscled predator that may have rivaled the fearsome carnivores of later ages. Not all were giants, though. Some were pack hunters, lean, agile creatures with sharp claws and coordinated instincts. Small theropods like Silurus or Ornitholestes may not have been deadly on their own, but in numbers, you wouldn't stand a chance. You imagine trying to run through this forest, tripping over vines, ducking low-hanging branches, the pounding of claws behind you, getting closer, closer. Would you even survive a single encounter? Your only chance might be evasion, camouflage, distraction. Because in this world, you are prey. You hear a soft clicking sound to your left. A second later, a flurry of feathers darts past. Not a bird, but a feathered dinosaur. Perhaps an early Maniraptoran. You'd expect it to take flight, but instead it hops from branch to branch, chirping loudly. Feathers in the Jurassic? Yes, some small predators were already beginning to wear coats of fluff and primitive plumage, not for flight, but for insulation, display, and even communication. This creature isn't hunting you, it's warning others. Of what? The answer comes quickly. A low, dragging snarl, followed by the flash of another predator weaving through the underbrush. You scramble up a short ridge, hiding behind a wall of stone and ferns. Your heart pounds in your ears. The carnivore doesn't follow. Not yet, but it's out there. You crouch quietly, thinking about what survival really means in this place. You'd need more than bravery. You'd need knowledge of terrain, of behavior, of patterns. You'd need to know when the predators hunt, where they nest, what scents attract them. You'd need to stay silent, hidden, invisible, and you'd need tools. Your mind drifts to fire, perhaps your only true defense. But in the thick, humid forest, lighting a fire quickly is no easy task. And in this high-oxygen world, any flame could spiral out of control. A torch might scare a predator away, or start a fire that devours everything. You begin to understand why so many creatures in the Jurassic relied on armor, speed, or deception to survive. You'd need all three, and even then, there would be no guarantees. You look down at the prints in the mud, deep, clawed, sharp-edged, each one the size of a dinner plate. And beside them, smaller tracks. A set of three-toed prints, light and quick. Perhaps a baby predator, or maybe the prey it was stalking. Life here is a constant game of balance. Hunter and hunted, speed and stillness, hunger and escape. And in that game, you are slow. You are soft. You are not the top of the food chain. A loud bellow breaks the silence, a challenge. A warning, or perhaps a victory cry. It echoes through the forest, bouncing off trunks and cliffs, vibrating in your chest. It's time to move again. If you want to survive in this world, you'll need more than just caution. You'll need protection, somewhere to rest, to regroup, to shelter yourself from the jaws that prowl this forest day and night. Let's search for a place you can call safe, if only for a little while. You step carefully through the underbrush, each footfall soft against the spongy, fern-covered ground. The forest is quieter now, but you know better than to relax. You've seen what stalks the trees, what hides in the shadows, and how quickly calm can become chaos in the Jurassic. If you're going to last here, not just for an hour or a day, but for days or weeks, you'll need more than hiding spots. You'll need real shelter. You scan the surrounding terrain, looking for anything that might serve as protection. Not just from predators, but from the elements. Jurassic storms are powerful, and the climate itself is unrelenting. Hot, wet, and bursting with unfamiliar microbes. You need cover from claws and teeth, but also from rain, disease, insects, and heat. A shallow cave comes into view, half hidden by drooping vines and boulders. Your heart lifts. Shelter. Possibly safe. You approach cautiously, pulling back a curtain of leaves to peer inside. The air is cool and slightly musty. It smells of stone and wet soil. You step in slowly, feet crunching over pebbles and old plant matter. The ceiling is low but solid. This cave has likely been carved over centuries by water trickling through soft rock. A tiny stream still flows across the floor, not enough to flood, but enough to provide water for drinking and cleaning. You need, for now, this cave will do. You begin to imagine what life might look like if you made this space your home. What would you need to make it livable, safe, stable, familiar? In your world, shelter is built with design and planning, bricks, wood, insulation, roofing. But here, everything must be scavenged. You'd have to think like an early human. Or earlier still. Next, you consider bedding. The ground inside is uneven, damp. You pile soft moss, dried ferns, and thick mats of grass into a corner. It's not much, but it's better than bare rock. You lie back and feel it cushion your bones slightly, insulating you from the chill of stone. Then, fire. You search for dry wood, but the Jurassic forest is a world of moisture. Every branch you touch feels damp. You find some drier twigs beneath the shelter of a fallen log and tuck them under your arm. Back inside the cave, you create a small pit lined with stones. Using a spark tool from your bag, or perhaps two carefully struck rocks if you were without, you attempt to coax flame from the dampness. It's difficult. The humidity fights you. The wood resists. But eventually, a thin tendril of smoke curls upward. Then a flicker. Then fire. You protect it with cupped hands, feeding it slowly, gently. A whisper of flame in a world too wet to burn. But you remember the danger. With high oxygen levels, fire spreads quickly. You cannot let it touch the outside forest. You must control it. The light it casts dances along the cave walls, painting everything in amber tones. For the first time since you arrived in the Jurassic, you feel something like comfort. But the illusion is fragile. You still hear the sounds beyond the clearing, the occasional snapping twig, the distant calls of predators or herbivores moving through the underbrush. You are not alone, and you never will be. Shelter buys you time, not safety. Even sleeping would be a risk. You'd need to build warning systems, dry leaves outside that crunch underfoot, or a line of stones that clatter if disturbed. Perhaps even a decoy fire outside the cave to draw curious creatures away while you sleep. Or soot painted onto your skin to mask your scent. You think about clothing. Whatever you wore when you arrived, perhaps modern hiking gear, won't last forever. In this wet, abrasive environment, synthetic fabric will tear, stitching will fray. You'd need to fashion coverings from leaves, bark, or perhaps the shed skin of reptiles. You could use vines as rope, hollowed wood for containers. Everything you need must come from the forest. Tools, stone blades could be made by napping sharp edges against harder rocks. You could shape branches into spears, create nets from braided vines, even craft fish traps to place in streams. Shelter isn't just a place to rest. It becomes your workshop, your base, your lifeline. You take stock of what you've built. A rough curtain of foliage, a fire, a soft bed of moss, a small stream. It's primitive, exposed, vulnerable, but it's a start. As the sun, you exhale slowly. This could be your life here, always on edge, always adapting, always alert, but also in awe. And now that you have a place to shelter, even for one night, you can begin to think about the next step in survival. What will you eat? What grows in this ancient world? What walks or flies or crawls that might be edible or deadly? Let's step out once more and explore the Jurassic pantry. The fire crackles softly behind you as you step back into the twilight forest. Your stomach growls, a gentle but insistent reminder that survival isn't just about avoiding danger, it's also about nourishment. Here in the Jurassic, nothing comes packaged. There's no bread, no fruit stands, no canned soup tucked safely on a shelf. Every bite must be earned, identified, collected, and eaten with great care. This is not the world of apples, bananas, or wheat. Those familiar fruits, grains, and vegetables you rely on haven't evolved yet. Flowering plants, called angiosperms, have yet to make their debut. This is a world ruled by gymnosperms, ferns, cycads, ginkgos, and conifers. And though many of these plants are beautiful, their edibility is limited. You approach a thick cluster of cycads. Their bark is rough, their trunks short and stout, their crowns heavy with stiff, palm-like leaves. In the center of one is a cone, fat, brown, and heavy. It looks like a giant pine cone, and it holds seeds that could, in theory, be eaten, but only with caution. You step back. This Jurassic pantry is full of food that looks familiar, but carries hidden risks. Even the ferns, though lush and widespread, might contain carcinogens or irritants. In your time, bracken ferns can be dangerous. Here, their prehistoric cousins are even more untested. Your safest bet? Protein. You spot movement at your feet, a scuttling shape darting beneath the leaf litter. Insects. Here, they are abundant. Shiny beetles, chirping crickets, and soft-bodied grubs hiding beneath logs. They aren't appealing by modern culinary standards, but they may be your best option. Next, you follow a narrow animal path to a shallow stream. Tiny freshwater crustaceans cling to rocks beneath the surface. You use a flat stone to coax them into a bark container. There are fish, too. Small darting creatures that resemble primitive bony fish, their scales flashing in the fading light. You craft a simple trap from sticks and vines, positioning it near a natural bottleneck in the stream. With patience, it may reward you. You also keep your eye on the trees. High above, strange fruits dangle from a ginkgo-like tree. They appear soft and fleshy, like plums or apricots. But again, caution. Many ginkgo seeds are toxic unless prepared properly. Some might be edible in small amounts, but others could induce nausea or worse. You pluck a few, wrapping them in leaves to examine later. You notice another possibility. Mushrooms. Beneath the still. You return to your cave just as the sun sinks below the treetops. The fire still glows softly, casting light across the stone walls. You lay out your modest harvest, a few insect grubs, 2 snails, a fistful of water bugs, a couple of strange berries, and the ginkgo fruit. The berries you leave untouched, at least for now. In the glow of the fire, you consider how humans once adapted to wild, unfamiliar places. Early Homo sapiens survived in ice ages, deserts, and jungles. They didn't have guidebooks or science degrees. They had observation, memory, community, and instinct. Here in the Jurassic, you'd have none of that. No ancestors to pass down knowledge, no generations of trial and error. You are alone. A single human among millions of years of evolution, and everything you eat could either feed you or finish you. And still, there's hope. This is how you would survive, not by mastering the land, but by listening to it. And let's go find them. The early light of morning filters softly through the dense canopy as you wake, stretching sore limbs on your bed of moss and ferns. Your stomach feels hollow again, but something else is even more urgent. Thirst. You step outside the cave and breathe deeply. The air is still heavy with moisture, but there's a crispness to the morning. Dew clings to every surface, sparkling in the light. You hear the gentle trickle of your nearby stream and follow it downstream, your mind focused now on water. Clean, safe, plentiful, water. But as with food, nothing in the Jurassic can be taken for granted. You kneel beside the stream and scoop a handful toward your lips, pausing. In your even as still, water is life. And so survival depends on caution. You begin with observation. The stream flows steadily, not stagnant. That's a good sign. Upstream, there are no visible animal carcasses, no mudslides or decaying vegetation. You break off a long stick and dig a shallow basin near the edge, letting the water slowly seep in. The trickling process helps strain out larger debris and sediment. You gather flat stones and arrange them to create a basic filter: gravel, charcoal from last night's fire, and fine sand layered carefully. You pour water through it slowly, catching it in a curved ginkgo leaf. It isn't perfect, but it's something. Then, you place your filtered leaf full of water into a bark bowl and bring it back to the fire. Boiling, is your best defense. It takes you sit by the fire, bowl in hand, watching the steam rise. It occurs to you that water, something so often overlooked in modern life, is perhaps your most precious resource here. You follow the stream deeper into the forest. It winds gently around tree roots and fallen logs, creating tiny pools and shallow rapids. You notice signs of other life, footprints near the muddy bank, some three-toed, others small and padded. You even spot claw marks on a nearby trunk. Clearly, this water source is shared. And that predator, you look for higher ground, a ledge of stone above the water where you could safely perch and keep watch. From there, you spot something remarkable. You make your way toward it, weaving through ferns and thick brush. The river is broad and brownish, filled with silt and swirling eddies. On the far bank, massive dinosaurs gather, perhaps Stegosaurus or Camarasaurus, dipping their long necks to drink. One splashes playfully, sending ripples across the surface. A crocodilian. But not. This is a prehistoric giant. Perhaps a Metriorhynchus or Dacosaurus, adapted for marine life. Its snout is long, its body streamlined, a predator of rivers and shallow seas. It lurks just below the surface, watching. So, once again, you retreat to your smaller stream. You've begun to understand its moods, where it runs clearer, where debris gathers, where animal tracks are few. You choose a high, quiet bend, shaded by trees, and begin preparing a more permanent collection point. You are building a system, a simple as you realize, they are highways. Rivers connect habitats. They bring food, animals, danger. You follow your small stream to where it meets a larger tributary. There you spot tracks again, but different this time. Not claws or paws. Feet. Small mammals. Tiny, but these, just as you now depend on water, they do too. And in their patterns, you begin to see your own reflection. Small, vulnerable, thirsty, and endlessly resourceful. And water, once a silent danger, is now a friend. But even as you sip, you feel the wind shift, a cooler breeze, a scent of ozone, the trembling hush of leaves overhead. A storm is coming. Let's prepare. Too still. A storm is coming. But this isn't just any storm. In the Jurassic, weather behaves differently. Bigger, bolder, and more dangerous. With higher temperatures and greenhouse conditions surrounding the globe, storms during this time could be violent and unpredictable. Thick, moisture-rich air fuels massive cloud systems. You glance up and see them now. Towering clouds building rapidly, darkening at their bases, flashing with light from within. You retreat into the forest, looking for shelter beyond your cave. You remember a low overhang of stone near the stream's edge, partially shielded by thick roots and tall cycads. You hurry there, ducking beneath just as the sky breaks open. You're lucky. Had you stayed exposed just moments longer, you might have been caught in the open. A perfect lightning target in a world of electrical chaos. As you wait beneath the overhang, you study the storm. The water. Not water. Flash flooding. Because the cave, your temporary home, is likely flooding now. Imagine it. Waking to tremors. Feeling the ground shift beneath you. Then seeing glowing orange light over the hills. Fire from deep inside the earth. You'd have no warning systems, no satellite forecasts, just instincts and the trembling of your shelter walls. And then there are the earthquakes. They don't announce themselves. They strike even then and destruction. You sit now beneath your overhang, watching the storm begin to ease. The rain softens to a patter. The wind drops. Steam rises from the ground as the forest exhales. You step cautiously back into the open, blinking against the brightness of sudden sunlight breaking through gaps in the clouds. Every surface gleams. Leaves drip with silver droplets. Puddles reflect the sky. But much has changed. A tree you'll have to rebuild. But the giraffe, and with it, after the storm, life returns. A chorus of chirps and whistles rises from the trees. Ferns unfold their fronds to drink from the light. Insects buzz again, dancing between shafts of sun. A pair of small dinosaurs dart between the trees, their feathers slick with rain, but their steps light and quick. You kneel beside a puddle and catch your reflection. Mud-streaked, tired, but alive. And learning. Forever still, some are. What about illness, infection, disease? You said, what if danger isn't just outside? What if it's so far you focused on the visible threats of the Jurassic? Towering predators, surging floods, volcanic eruptions. But there's another world, a smaller, silent one, that poses just as much risk to a human trying to survive here. The microbial world. Bacteria invisible to your eyes, but everywhere. In the water, in the soil, on plants, on your skin. And unlike the roaring Allosaurus or the crushing weight of a Brachiosaurus, these dangers don't pounce. They slip inside. A scrap, that's all it would take. You kneel, but wounds are only one entry point. You think about what you've eaten. Insects roasted over fire. A few seeds nibbled cautiously. Were they clean? Were they safe? Your digestive system is designed for the microbial makeup of the modern world. But here, the tiniest contamination could cause stomach cramping, vomiting, fever. A parasite could latch onto your intestines. A protozoan could slip into your bloodstream. You'd grow, and still, the body fights back. Your immune system is strong. In its own time, it fends off thousands of threats daily. White blood cells, antibodies, fever responses, all designed to detect and destroy. You might have a chance, especially if you move cautiously, cook your food well, boil all water, avoid strange fruits and fungi. But you lie a bite. You frown. Because not just long before modern medicine, humans survived by testing, tasting, waiting, and remembering. Some plants eased pain, others stopped bleeding, still others soothed fevers. You begin looking for these now. Mosses with antibacterial oils, tree resins that harden into amber-like antiseptics, bark that might reduce inflammation. Nature provides, but you must discover them yourself. Everything, even in the tiniest movements. And now, as you crouch beside a fallen log and observe a pair of ancient frogs, squat, warty, their skin glistening with dew, you see it again. Survival is not about power, it is about balance. About listening to the world, respecting its rhythms, and adjusting your own. A rustle nearby startles you. But it's not. You smile. It made a choice. So did you. Both of you are navigating the same unseen threats, not just claws and teeth, but bacteria and bites, infection and fever. And both of you survive, for now, by knowing where to step, what to touch, what to avoid. You rise and make your way back toward your cave, carrying water, bark, and new knowledge. You faced not just the giants and storms, but the tiniest dangers too. But now, a new question stirs in your mind. Let's imagine what that would take. As dawn filters once more through the Jurassic canopy, you sit by your fire and run your hands across the tattered edge of your clothing. The fabric, once clean and durable, is now frayed and worn thin. Your boots are cracked, your shirt is damp with humidity and stained with sap and smoke. Threads dangle loose, and now you understand. Modern materials don't belong in this world. So you begin to ask the next question. If your clothes were gone, how would you clothe yourself again? In the world you know, clothing is woven. Cotton, wool, synthetics, spun in factories or stitched by hand. But here, there are no cotton fields, no domesticated sheep, no flax or silk. The Jurassic offers no fabric, only the raw, wild textures of nature. You rise and walk into the forest, fingers brushing against the landscape as you pass. Rough bark, waxy leaves, coarse grasses. These are your new textiles. Your first discovery is bark. The outer layers of some trees peel away in strips, fibrous and flexible when wet. With care, you can remove long sheets, soak them in stream water, and pound them smooth with stones. Layered, these bark strips might form a tunic. Rough, yes, but functional. The kind of garment worn by the earliest humans. Next, you gather broadleaves, like those of cycads and ferns. When woven or stitched with sharpened thorns, they can form coverings for your shoulders or legs. They won't last long, but they offer protection from insects, sun, and thorns. For foot coverings, you try thick pads of moss and wrap them in layers of vine and bark. It's not elegant, but it cushions your steps. In time, with repeated crafting, these might even resemble crude sandals. Then there is animal skin. You haven't hunted yet, not directly. But you find the molted hide of a small reptile caught in a rocky crevice. It's dry and brittle, but you soak it, clean it, and scrape it smooth. If you could gather more, from scavenging rather than killing, you might someday stitch together a patchwork covering. But stitching requires tools, and that's your next challenge. You kneel by a stream bed, sifting through rocks. You're searching for something specific: flint, chert, or obsidian, stones that break in sharp, glassy edges. You find a few promising pieces and begin to shape them, striking one against the other with practiced patience. Eventually, you form a blade, thin, jagged, and keen enough to cut. You bind it to a stick with wet vine, wrapping it tightly and letting it dry into place. You've made a knife. Next, you shape a pointed stone and tie it to a longer branch. A spear. Crude, but enough to probe dark corners or defend against curious creatures. You feel the ancient knowledge returning, the kind that lies dormant in every human, buried beneath centuries of civilization. You make fishhooks from thorns, cord from twisted fibers, baskets from vines. Your hands, blistered and sore, become tougher, more certain, more skilled. Still, it's not easy. You lack iron. You lack fire-hardened pots or bone needles. There are no metal tools, no cloth strips, no ceramic vessels. You are reinventing the earliest stages of technology with only what nature allows. And nature is stingy. Every tool you create must be protected, maintained. Lose a blade, and you'll spend hours carving another. Snap a spear, and you risk meeting a predator empty-handed. Tear your bark tunic, and the sun will scorch your skin again. But even through the discomfort, something stirs within you, a quiet sense of capability. You are not simply hiding or reacting. You are building, shaping, crafting your life from raw materials. You think of early humans, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, Homo sapiens, all who came before, who learned to use what they found to survive the unknown. You are walking their path, step by deliberate step. And it's not just about function. Tools shape time. You use your blade to carve symbols into stone, marks that track days, map territories, or perhaps hold meaning only you understand. You use ash from your fire to paint simple patterns on a flat wall, your fingers tracing spirals, suns, claws. Even in a world this old, you are creating something new, a culture of one. And yet, as you sit by your cave in your bark tunic and moss shoes, sharpening your spear beside the fire, you begin to wonder, what if you weren't alone? What if there were others? Could a small group survive here, together? Could you build not just shelter and clothing, but community? Let's imagine that now. Not survival in solitude, but survival together. You sit by the fire, the orange light flickering softly across stone and bark, and you imagine what it would be like. Not to be alone. What if beside you sat another person, tired, dirty, and wide-eyed like you, but offering a quiet nod of recognition, and then another, and another, a group of 10, 20, maybe more. A small band of humans, cast together into the Jurassic. Would it make things easier or harder? You stare into the flames and begin to understand. Surviving alone is difficult, but surviving together is its own kind of challenge. The forest stirs outside. Insects buzz, a distant bellow echoes through the trees, and you begin to imagine what life in a Jurassic human settlement would require. First, space. You'd need to expand your cave, or perhaps find a series of nearby shelters, one for sleeping, another for storing food, another for gathering or crafting. Fire pits would need to be placed carefully to avoid suffocating smoke, and sleeping areas would have to be elevated above flood lines. Then, roles. Some would gather water, others would forage for food, search for edible insects, watch the riverbanks for fish. A few would hunt, not large animals, but small ones, lizards, reptiles, birds. Others would make tools, maintain fire, prepare basic medicines, or care for the young. Suddenly, survival becomes division of labor, of responsibility, of trust. You think of language, essential to human society. With just one person, it's unspoken, but with many, it becomes lifeblood. How else could you share danger, coordinate foraging routes, warn of predators? Every sound would matter, every gesture would carry weight. You'd invent signals, claps for danger, whistles for water, hand signs for silence. And eventually, the quiet beginnings of a spoken tongue. New words for creatures, plants, storms. Perhaps even names for places, for tools, for one another. Community means memory. Around the fire, someone might tell a story of the first time they saw a pterosaur fly overhead, or how they escaped a predator's jaws. The group would listen, learn, repeat. That story might become a ritual, a warning, a myth. Now you see how culture forms, not from artifice, but from necessity, from the need to remember. But community also means risk. In close quarters, disease spreads faster. One person's infected wound can endanger the group. Limited food becomes a source of tension. Shelter built for one might collapse under the weight of many. Leadership, fair or flawed, begins to emerge. Someone makes decisions. Someone disagrees. And in the wild silence of the Jurassic, voices raised in conflict might draw attention from the very beasts you hide from. So you'd need rules. Not laws, perhaps, but customs, agreements. Maybe the oldest among you is given the role of judge. The strongest hunts. The gentlest cares for the young. The cleverest shapes tools. Over time, patterns emerge. A ring of stones becomes your gathering place. A certain tree becomes your watch point. Symbols scratched into rock mark where food was found, or where danger waits. A stick with notches tracks days. A pile of shells records successful hunts. You begin to map time, and time, more than anything, gives meaning to survival. Not just today, but yesterday and tomorrow. Evenings become moments of storytelling, of shared dreams. Children, if they come, grow up watching the elders work, learning the forest trails, mimicking the creation of tools. Laughter returns. Joy is found not in comfort, but in companionship. But your challenges evolve. A group needs more. More food, more clean water, more materials for clothing and shelter. You range farther from the safety of your cave. You build small camps near distant water sources, always returning to the main shelter before nightfall. Eventually you construct lookout posts, platforms in tall trees wrapped in vines. Fires are watched closely, maintained by turns. Night guards sleep in shifts, and when danger comes, and it will, the community acts as one. Spears are raised, children are hidden, escape paths are remembered. There is fear, but there is also resilience. You imagine this group of Jurassic humans standing at the edge of the forest, watching a herd of sauropods pass in slow, thunderous silence. No longer stunned, no longer afraid, just reverent. Because these creatures, these giants, are no longer foreign, they are part of your world now. Part of the same cycle. You feel that now. How a small band of humans, given enough time, might not just survive here, but belong. And these minutes, they might track migrations, understand seasons, know which fruits are dangerous and which roots nourish. They might not change the land, but they would be shaped by it, molded by its rhythms and dangers. Still, one challenge remains. You've built shelter, found food, shared labor. But what about protection? What about fire? Could you defend yourself and your people if the jungle turned against you? Let's return now to the simplest, oldest human ally. Let's talk about fire. Night falls across the Jurassic forest like a slow wave of ink, spreading through the canopy, turning the vibrant green of leaves to shadowy silhouettes. The air cools slightly but remains heavy, thick with moisture and the earthy perfume of ferns and soil. You sit by your fire, the flames dancing gently, their light flickering across the cave wall. It is more than warmth. It is protection, power, signal, memory. It is fire, humankind's oldest companion. But here, in this ancient world, fire is something else too. Unpredictable, dangerous, and wild. You feed a few more dry twigs into the flame, watching as they curl and blacken. You've had to learn which woods burn and which smolder. Some smoke too heavily, others hiss with moisture, threatening to extinguish the flames. Dry fuel is scarce. The rainforest rarely dries out fully, and every storm leaves the forest dripping for days. Still, you've managed to keep your fire going, and tonight, you understand just how crucial it is, because something is watching. You heard it earlier, the soft rustle of underbrush, the crunch of wet leaves. Not close, not yet, but near enough that every sound now makes you turn your head. And as the fire crackles, you realize, this light may be the only thing keeping you safe. Predators don't like fire. At least, most don't. In your time, stories of early humans using flames to frighten off lions, wolves, and bears are common. The same instincts may apply here. The glow, the heat, the smoke, they suggest danger, or at least the unknown. And that pause, that hesitation, might be enough. You lift a burning stick and wave it gently at the forest edge. Nothing moves. But you feel the weight of unseen eyes. You plant the torch at the cave's entrance and add a second, a third. Now the light forms a ring, a protective glow that stretches beyond the shadows. You exhale slowly. You're learning to use fire as a barrier. But fire is more than defense. It's a tool. You cook your food with it. Insects, fish, even roots too tough to chew raw. The heat softens fibers, breaks down toxins, releases nutrients. Without fire, your diet would be sparse, and your digestion strained. You harden spear points in the flames. You heat stones and drop them into bark bowls to warm water. You use coals to hollow logs, to dry clothing, to sterilize tools. You've even begun to craft signal fires, smoky blazes during the day, bright beacons at night. In a community, these would mark paths, signal danger, or call for help. But you also know fire's risk. The Jurassic air, rich in oxygen, makes flames behave differently. They burn hotter, spread faster. A single spark in dry ferns could light a blaze that races beyond your control. Already, you've seen blackened patches of forest, evidence of natural fires that once swept through. Perhaps lightning started them, or lava, or a stray ember from a careless creature. In this world, fire is no gentle servant. It's a dragon, waiting to wake. So, you learn to respect it. You dig pits, surround them with stones. You clear vegetation around the fire. You keep water close, you never leave a flame unwatched, and you wonder, could fire truly protect you from something massive, from something angry? A curious predator might sniff and retreat, but what if it didn't? What if a theropod, like Allosaurus, didn't fear the flicker? What if it had seen fire before and understood it couldn't reach beyond your torch? Then fire becomes a bluff, one that may or may not work. You'd have to pair it with noise, smoke, movement, perhaps even combine flames with thrown spears, flashing reflections from polished stone. You'd become a performer as much as a survivor, staging fear with light and shadow. And fire could also be used to manipulate the land. You consider the idea of burning a path through undergrowth, to clear a safe zone or expose edible roots. You think of smoke as a tool to flush out insects or small animals from hiding. You imagine heating stones and burying them for warmth during cold rainstorms. You even think in a distant, future-shaped corner of your mind of pottery. Could you make it? Fire clay in a pit? Store clean water? Boil food? Your tools could evolve with fire as your ally. But all of it, every possibility, depends on one fragile thing: your ability to control the flame. Let it slip, and the forest could turn against you. You remember the first time you lit a fire here. How long it took, how hard it was to find dry fuel. Now, you know where to look, what barks to peel, which dead branches stay dry even after storms. You know how to build a core of embers, how to shield the wind, how to breathe just enough to coax the smallest spark into light. That knowledge is your fire now. And in the quiet moments, when the jungle hushes, when predators stalk the distance, when you're tired, sore, and questioning everything, that light may be all that keeps the darkness from swallowing your spirit. But as you poke at the embers and feel the heat on your face, you look skyward, because not all threats come from the ground. Above you, in the towering sky, something glides, not a shadow, not a cloud, but something alive. Let's turn our gaze upward now, to the winged wonders of the Jurassic skies. You step out of your shelter and lift your gaze to the sky. It's morning again in the Jurassic, and the canopy opens above you into a broad sweep of pale blue. Wispy clouds drift lazily across the horizon, their edges tinged with gold from the rising sun. The warmth on your face is soft, not yet the heavy heat of midday. But as you squint upward, something else captures your attention. Movement, silent and smooth. A shape glides overhead. Long wings, narrow body. A leathery silhouette against the light. A pterosaur. It soars effortlessly, wings outstretched, adjusting its course with subtle shifts of its elongated fingers. For a moment, it reminds you of a bird, a large gull perhaps, but it's something else entirely. These are not birds. Birds have not yet evolved. This is a flying reptile, and the sky is full of them. You watch in awe as more shapes appear, small ones flitting like bats between trees, and larger ones gliding high above the forest, their wingspans stretching 10, 15, even 20 feet across. Some have long, sharp beaks filled with teeth. Others sport odd crests rising from their skulls. Brilliant shapes, perhaps for display or steering, their colors muted in the distance. Pterosaurs, you recall, come in many forms, from the small, agile Rhamphorhynchus to the larger and more imposing Pterodostro or Dimorphodon. Some may skim lakes for fish with spoon-shaped jaws. Others snatch insects mid-air, and others still might stalk the forest floor on all fours, wings folded like crutches, eyes scanning for prey. You feel small beneath them, not just because of their wingspan, but because of how confidently they rule this realm. In your time, the sky is a place of machines, of airplanes, drones, satellites. Birds live there, but they don't own it. Here in the Jurassic, these reptiles do. You crouch low, wondering if one might swoop down, not out of aggression, but curiosity or hunger. Could they be a danger? Possibly. The larger ones are capable of piercing flesh. A human crouched by a stream, still and unaware, might seem like easy prey to a hungry flyer. Their eyesight is sharp, their reflexes quick. And if they hunted in groups, some scientists speculate they might have, then facing them would be more than difficult. So you watch them carefully. You've learned to build shelters with partial coverings, branches, bark, leaves, not just for rain, but for shade, camouflage, and yes, protection from above. Still, you can't help but feel wonder. They glide so silently, so precisely. Not like modern birds with their quick flaps and soaring glides. Pterosaurs seem to float, their wings catching invisible winds that pass far above the forest canopy. You imagine what it must be like to ride those currents, to see the world from such a height. And with that thought comes another. The view. From up there, a pterosaur might see the winding rivers, the herds of sauropods moving through clearings, the rising plumes of distant volcanoes. It might see weather rolling in across the coast. It might spot other pterosaurs from miles away, mates, rivals, or flocks heading to nesting grounds. You begin to wonder where they go. Do they roost in high cliffs, like modern seabirds? Do they perch in tall trees, build nests on ledges? Some pterosaur fossils suggest they laid leathery eggs, tucked into shallow scrapes on land. Perhaps there are nesting colonies somewhere, noisy, crowded, filled with chirps and clicks and the rustle of wings. You'd want to stay far away, not out of fear, but respect. Because, like the sauropods below, these creatures are not here for you. They don't notice you, not really. You're just another part of the background, another shadow on the forest floor. But that doesn't mean you go unseen, because the sky holds more than pterosaurs. Clouds build in the distance, rising tall and bright like silent towers. A coming storm? You've seen enough of them to know the signs, and with each one, the sky becomes a battlefield, not just of wind and rain, but of flight and survival. Smaller pterosaurs dart and twist as the wind picks up. They vanish into the trees. The larger ones climb higher, chasing thinner air, or perhaps searching for thermals to ride until the storm passes. You wonder if any are ever caught by surprise, thrown into trees, dashed into rocks, wings torn by turbulent currents. Because even for the masters of the sky, the Jurassic is unforgiving. The first drops fall, thick, warm, splattering against leaves. You retreat to shelter, but not before stealing one last glance upward. And you see it, a massive shape banking into a turn, diving briefly toward the treetops, then rising again with effortless grace. A pterosaur alone in the storm, silhouetted against darkening clouds. You smile. There is fear in this world, yes, but also majesty. As you step back into your cave, you think of the sky not as a threat, but as a realm of stories, of creatures you'll never reach, but always admire. And yet, all of this land of reptiles and storms and endless ferns, raises the final question. Could you really survive here? Let's gather what we've learned and ask, one last time, could humans truly live in the Jurassic? You sit at the entrance of your shelter as evening descends once again over the Jurassic forest. The fire crackles gently at your feet. Above, pterosaurs glide in the fading light. The forest breathes, not in silence, but in rhythm. Leaves rustle, insects hum. Somewhere in the distance, a sauropod groans softly. A low, thunderous sound that fades like a sigh. You are alive. And that, in itself, is something remarkable. But now, as the stars blink into view, the same stars that will shine down on Earth millions of years later, you ask yourself a question you've been circling since the beginning. Could you really survive here? Not just for a day or two, not as a curious visitor, but as a living creature of this world. Let's gather what we've learned. You've adapted to the land, its heat, its soil, its shifting geology. You've found shelter, caves, overhangs, places to hide from storms and predators. You've begun to understand the terrain, where water flows, where animals pass, where danger lingers. You've filtered water, boiled it, trusted it, carefully. You've foraged for food, learning what can be eaten and what must be feared. You've tasted insects, gathered strange fruits, roasted grubs, watched what animals eat and copied them. You've faced predators, great theropods that stalk silently through the trees. You've built fire to hold them back, crafted spears, created signals, stood still when necessary, fled when possible. You've learned to respect the air, richer in oxygen than your body is used to. You've adapted your breath, your rest, your pace. You've endured storms that drench the forest in minutes, and you've marveled at the creatures that glide across the sky, so different from the world you know. And perhaps most importantly, you've begun to build. You've shaped tools, woven coverings, created memory, symbols, marks, even the earliest seeds of society, imagining others by your side, creating roles, rules, stories, and shared survival. By all accounts, you've done what humans do best. You've adapted. But now you begin to feel the deeper truth. Surviving is one thing. Belonging is another. You are not of this world. Not truly. Your immune system is untested against its microbes. Your diet, your muscles, your senses, all built for another time. You miss things you didn't even realize you relied on. Salt, steady sleep, soft fabric, clean light. Even silence is different here. The forest is never quiet, and perhaps most of all, the isolation. Even in a dream of shared survival, you know you are far from your time. There is no language here, no art, no ancient stories passed down to you. You are building from nothing, alone. Yet you marvel at what you've done. You've walked with giants, crouched beneath the gaze of flying reptiles, slept under stars that haven't changed, though the earth has. You've known the sharp sting of survival, but also the deep awe of wonder, of seeing the planet not just before history, but before you. If a small group of humans were truly transported to the Jurassic, prepared, cautious, determined, could they survive? Possibly. Short term, yes. Long term, that depends on luck, on learning, on resilience, and time. Because to truly survive here would mean changing. Letting the forest shape you, letting the land teach you, not to conquer it, but to join it. And maybe, just maybe, over centuries, your descendants could begin to look less like visitors and more like children of this ancient earth. You lean back against the stone, listening to the wind move through the trees, the fire crackle, the distant calls echoing across the darkening forest. You've come so far. Now, let the fire burn low. Let the stars keep watch. And let's bring this journey to a close. The fire has burned low. The creatures of the Jurassic move quietly through the forest, their shapes softened by the mist of night. The pterosaurs have returned to their cliffs. The predators sleep in their lairs. Even the towering giants, the sauropods, rest beneath the starlight, their great hearts beating in time with the earth. And you are here, at the edge of a world long gone. You've walked among ferns as tall as buildings, tasted fruits no human has ever known, and listened to the ancient songs of creatures that lived before memory. You've built shelter from bark and vine, carved tools from stone, and warmed your hands by— The Jurassic was never meant for us. It was its own world, wild, beautiful, immense. But for just a little while, you stepped into it, and in doing so, you touched something timeless. So rest now. Close your eyes and let the soft sounds of this ancient forest carry you. The ripple of a stream, the distant cry. You are safe. You are still. Let the stars above you shine on, just as they did. And as you drift into sleep,